listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma, and I'm your host, Trish Close. Dan Pelosi, aka Grossy Pelosi, on the podcast today. What an incredible conversation. I hesitate to say interview because it really was just a couple of gals dishing about food and life and family and all the things that we love. Dan's from the East Coast, from a very loving, tight-knit family. And he says food and family were like this, intertwined, attached at the hip. He didn't go into a career into food, so to speak, but he says his fiery passion for cooking and all things food never really cooled off. It wasn't until the pandemic, actually 2019, he lost someone very close to him unexpectedly. A house that he was set to buy, the deal fell through, and he just said he was at a low point. He wanted to take his Instagram and center it around all things food, just kind of a, let's see what happens. Well, what happened was an explosion of Grossy Pelosi. We talk a little bit about where that name came from. Never Been Kissed. You haven't seen the movie, go see it. You'll figure it out. An explosion of Grossy Pelosi. People not only fell in love with Dan, his sweet personality, his humor, but they also fell in love with his food and his cooking. What followed from that was merch, a cookbook, Let's Eat, which comes out very soon. And I asked him, what sets you apart from all of these other content producers, all of these other food bloggers and foodies out there? It comes down to one word: authenticity. Here's Grossy Pelosi. I feel like, Dan Pelosi, you may be obsessed with me at the end of this.
That's always my goal. My goal is to always leave anything being obsessed with someone. And today it's you.
I'm a little obsessed with you, I have to say. I'm going to introduce you properly, though. Dan Pelosi, you're also known as Grossy Pelosi. And if for those, we can talk about it. But I mean, if you haven't seen Never Been Kissed, first of all, shame on you. But that's where this comes from. I Googled you to do a little research, and you're an internet personality. Did you know that?
I am personality first, so I do very much align with that term.
But I have to say, I fell madly in love with you through Instagram because you're a meatball making meatballs, and I love, capital LOVE, love meatballs, all kinds. Give me all the balls all the time.
Okay, we're starting strong here.
Right? I mean, well, let's think about it. They're fun to make. They're fun to say.
Mm-hmm.
They're fun to eat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And they're fun to eat again later when you have leftovers.
It's the best.
You're making so many that you're gonna have leftovers.
All shapes and sizes. I like the big ones, this little small ones, like, right? Like all the shapes and sizes.
All of them are great, and I have all different size ones in my book, so get ready.
Oh, yes, and you have a new first cookbook coming out.
Baby's first book. It's happening.
I love it. Fisher Price, baby first book. Let's Eat. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited to chat with you. But all of my interviews start with, where are you from originally?
Waterbury, Connecticut.
Connecticut. But right now you're in New York, right?
Yes, I'm in my apartment in Brooklyn right now. But I am born and raised a Connecticut girly.
And I also saw that you split your time between Brooklyn and upstate New York. You have a house in upstate.
The past month, I just bought a house upstate, which is a very sort of like, I've been living in New York for most of my adult life thing, where you like dream of having a home outside of the city that you can escape to. And before this all became my full-time job, it was going to be like weekends and holidays. But now, because this is my full-time job and I really just need a kitchen, I can be in that house as much as I want, which is very exciting. So I'm hoping it'll become where I spend most of my time.
That's kind of bougie of you. You have 2 residences.
I mean, I have to say that was, I do think about that. And I have been working, I'm 41. So I've been a career girl my whole life. So I've been saving for a long time for this. So it's really exciting to be able to make one of my dreams happen after years of putting in the work. So it's cool.
Zero shame in that. I was reading something where you were talking about the year 2019. It was a rough year for you.
Yes.
Had a house. That deal fell through. And then you were like, I understand that's kind of a privilege. And I'm like, actually, no. Like, if you work and you work hard and you save money, there's nothing wrong saying, I want a damn house.
I mean, I think like I totally get that. And I think that hard work is absolutely hard work and we earn it. I just have been very careful to in the with the state of the world and the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic turned me into an internet personality, and it turned a lot of people upside down and backwards and forwards in ways
Totally.
that are not positive. So I just have always think it's important for all of us to sort of think about the way we frame things, and to be like, oh, I was buying a house and I lost it and it ruined my life in the middle of a global pandemic. It's just, I just wanted to kind of frame it up that way, and I know that you get that, but I do appreciate you coming from the other angle and sort of saying like hard work is hard work,
Yeah.
and it is, and that's why I'm very proud, and I don't stay quiet about this home. I've turned it into such a fun
Mm-hmm.
place to bring people along already, which is so great. So
No, for sure. I'm definitely sensitive. I always
yeah,
approach everyone I meet like you have no idea what's going on,
totally,
right? And so
totally,
just be
absolutely.
don't be a dick, be nice, right?
Yeah, and I think that was part of why I have so many people following me, because during the pandemic, I kept it really positive
Mm-hmm.
and really sort of like, this is a safe space for people who have a
Yeah.
hard day. You can come and you can watch me make a sandwich, you can watch me make a stupid joke, and hopefully it helped makes you smile during this weird time. So
I
it
think
got
it's
me
amazing.
through and it got other people through, which is really great.
It
So
did. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day. So just by visiting your website, family is incredibly important to you.
very,
Did you grow
yeah.
and I also feel like food was also important to your family growing up.
They're like linked like this. It's like when we talk about food in my family, we're talking about the same thing. They
Mm-hmm.
don't separate.
Yes, I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah,
So I'm from South Carolina. So we just had a vacation where we were all together and all we talked about, all we did was we talked about food, we made food. Then we talked about food, then we
yeah,
made food.
yes. Talking about what's for dinner at breakfast
Yeah.
is sort of the vibe. Absolutely. We I just went to my boyfriend's family reunion and they love food, but they're not they I had to help them sort of bring the food to the table, because when they all get together, there's decisions don't get made the way that they
Yeah.
do in my family.
Right.
Like we know immediately what we want and then we go do it, and we probably have already everything we need in the fridge and the pantry.
Sure.
And they were just laughing so hard because I was like, after 5 minutes of conversation at the breakfast table, I'd be like, so we're gonna have this for dinner, and you're gonna go get this, and you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do that. And they were like, thank God we have you.
Boom.
And a lot of that sort of attitude and energy is what I put into the book. It's like decision making, how to keep it simple. This doesn't need to be complicated.
No. Well, that's the kind of cooking that I grew up with. It was not
Totally.
fancy whatsoever.
No,
Very few
nothing.
ingredients.
Yep, exactly. Super easy and super delicious, and stuff that I always love that my people make my recipes over and over and over again, and that is all I can hope for. You
Brilliant.
know,
Who was the big cook in the family?
oh my gosh, who
Everybody?
was it? Who
Yeah.
wasn't? I mean, I'm sorry, allergies are still in me.
No worries.
My grandfather Bimpy, who is still alive, he's 101. He's sort of the king of the meatball. He makes them by the hundreds. Huge cook. My dad was a huge cook. My mom, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, everyone. That's sort of like the if you're me, not every little chubby Italian boy was like this, but I loved to get dragged around from all my cousins and my aunts and everyone's houses every day, every weekend, every holiday. And I would just sit in the kitchen
Yeah.
and just sort of silently watch and take notes. And that's how I learned everything that's in this book. I talk about in my biscotti recipes, sort of like hanging out with the ladies after dinner, drinking espresso and eating biscotti while the men were sort of doing their own thing. And I was truly taking notes. Like those women were dishing every piece of information. And those are the moments as a young little gay, a chubby Italian meatball that I just am so grateful for, because that's how I learned everything.
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Was there certain people in your family that were good at certain things?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think like, you know, my mom was a bit less like bullshit. Like she didn't take shit from anyone.
Right.
I think my grandma Catherine was a bit of a pushover. Bimpy was like the king of the grocery store and the coupon. He didn't get anything for like the lowest price possible. Like he would get in his car and drive down an alleyway and do like bread exchanges with the bread guy in alleyways. He would get taken into like the day old section of the grocery store and get all the stuff that was like too old to sell, but because Bimpy went through the depression, he was like, that is not too old.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually exactly how I would eat it. Like everyone and my dad, him and my Bimpy and my dad would cut coupons every Sunday morning at my dining table while my mom would make us breakfast. And I think my grandma Millie, my mom's mom, was really good at making more dramatic food. And everyone just had their own little skill set. So it
Yeah.
was just so great, you know?
Bimpy sounds a little like the Godfather making bread deals
he,
in a dark
he
alley.
is Bimpy didn't embrace having money the same way the Godfather did. I feel like the Godfather probably spent money and lived luxuriously. Bimpy's sort of like the penny pinching Godfather.
So you grew up in Connecticut though, right? That's where you're from. That's where you grew up.
Yeah.
What
Yes.
did you want to be when you grew up? I know food was like a big deal, but you didn't
Yeah,
go
I
into food.
did. No, I didn't. I thought about going into food right around freshman year of high school, and I went to the Culinary Institute of America and I looked at it, and um, this goes into a bit of my sort of relationship with my body, and it's kind of unfortunate, but my mom made some comment about how one of her coworkers' sons went to culinary school and gained like 30 pounds his first semester. And I just was like, that kind of destroyed me.
Mm.
And I was like, I can't, because I knew I was gay and I knew that I didn't have a gay body and or at the time. And I just was like, I can't go to school and get fatter than I already am. So I'm going to switch careers,
Nice.
which is like that is a very loaded statement. But I think you kind of get the gist of it. And so I decided to, take my other huge passion, which was art. I was going to art programs and I was always doing art classes. And so I was like, I'm going to go to design school and thought I would be a graphic designer, turned out being an architect, and then always cooked my whole life. And everyone always told me I should be a professional food something. But when you're 15 or 18 years into a career in another direction, it's hard to imagine pivoting, right? So, but the pandemic really allowed me to do that in a very big and exciting way. It's been incredible.
There were a lot of blessings that came out of that shit turd of a
For
couple of
sure.
years. There really were.
Absolutely.
Also,
Absolutely.
the gay bod, how that's so intimidating to me. I mean, I'm just like, I can't, not that I'm
It's
a gay
ridiculous.
man, but I feel like I am a gay man somewhere deep inside.
Yeah,
I don't know
I can.
how I couldn't keep up. It's so much
Oh,
work.
well, I gave up early on, and realized actually, I mean, I gave up early on, but I didn't realize the power behind that until I was about 30, like early 30s.
Yeah.
I've always defiantly had a bigger body.
Yeah.
Not always by choice. I did whittle myself down a couple times to be under 200 pounds. And when I tell you I looked like I was on my deathbed, it was just not right for me. Like my body is meant to be bigger
Mm-hmm.
and curvier. And I slowly realized that I denied a lot of people access to my body who wanted it because I never believed that they actually did.
Now that is a
And
shame.
it's a huge shame. And
That
I
breaks my
really wish
heart.
I wish I could go back and fuck all those guys because they were hot for me and I had no idea. And they've told me it's crazy. It is so crazy how we build our own walls. We really do. And so I joke that I want to go on like a high school TED talk for little chubby gay boys and just tell them that there are going to be men out there who are going to love their bellies
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be
Yeah.
okay. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah,
yeah,
we could that I think that's a
that's a
whole
whole
nother
other
interview.
whole other thing.
Seriously. I
It
mean,
really is, and it's a big part of. I talk about it a lot. If you, but you follow me on Instagram, and I do talk about bodies and body positivity and sort of that a
Mhm.
lot. But yeah, it's a whole other thing. It's
Yeah.
wild, but
And
it
it
is
also
kind of so related to food in a lot of ways, unfortunately, because food affects how our body looks and feels sometimes. So
right.
it's and anyways, yeah.
Well, good. Well, good for you. I think it takes more effort and energy to be negative and especially about
Hmm.
ourselves. And I think
Absolutely.
it's hard. And I feel like the older I'm 43, the older I get, the more comfortable I feel, the more beautiful
Oh
I
my
feel,
gosh.
right?
Isn't that amazing? Age is just, ugh, I love getting older.
Mm-hmm.
I feel better than ever in terms of myself and my body and my acceptance and
Yeah.
who I am. And if this I call it the light, if this light that came on me in the past 3 years had hit me at 20 or 25 or 30 or 35, no one would have followed me.
Right.
Like I have gone through a lot of therapy, I've learned a lot of lessons, I've grown, And now at 38, 39, 40, 41, I feel like I'm finally ready to sort of like
Hmm.
be someone that people have their eyes on because I have something to share that's valuable and not destructive or disordered.
Yeah,
you
girl,
know.
preach. Because I was in the news biz for almost 20 years and quit, left this consistent job,
Hmm.
right, to pursue other things. But I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm always thinking I'm too late. Like I got into it too late. And then it's like, no, you got in at just the right time.
just the right time. Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel the same way. I'm sort of like, wow, I'm 40 and I feel like I'm just getting started
Yeah.
with this career. But because I got into it later, I think that it's moving faster and more intentionally than it would have if I
Hmm.
had done it earlier. Like we could make better, smarter decisions, which sort of, I think, get us further in the
Agreed.
long, you know what I mean?
So culinary school didn't happen, but what did you decide to
No.
do?
So I went to Rhode Island School of Design, which
Ooh.
is a great school in Providence. I studied architecture and I spent a semester in Rome, which really awakened a whole. Sorry, I spent a whole year in Rome. My school at the time had a program where they sent you away for a year and you lived in a building that the school owned, and there was a big kitchen, three big kitchens, and I sort of took over one of the kitchens. And my life for that whole year was waking up, going to the Campo de Fiore, which is a huge farmers market, shopping the market, getting groceries, bringing them home, and then knowing that at 5:30 I would have 10 people in the kitchen and we would all cook together, but I was running the show. And that was really the very first time when I was all alone without some other family member
Hmm.
in the kitchen using all the like grandma, auntie, uncle, bimpy skills of making a beautiful meal come together and making people feel included. And it just opened up a whole other world for me. And when my mom came to visit halfway through the school year, she just was like, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like, you are just owning this kitchen. People are so happy. You're making dinner for everyone, but you're also making other people make dinner for themselves by helping you." It just was like an absolute dream. And I think that's really what I love about what I'm doing right now is I don't cook food for a lot of people unless they're my friends. I like to help people get themselves in the kitchen. And I think there's something really powerful there. I sort of expressly say, like, I'm not going to do like a restaurant or right now, maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe someday the Dan Pelosi restaurant in Las Vegas will premiere. But that's a whole other
It's
thing.
all meatballs. The menu's just
All meatballs,
all
yeah.
meatballs
The
all the time.
meatball bar.
Love it.
Bimpy's meatball bar.
Um, while you're doing all of this stuff, did you ever
Yeah.
feel in the last, I guess, it sounds like a couple of decades, you were doing other things besides,
Yeah.
food? Did you ever
Yeah.
like, maybe I will get into food, or were you like, I
Oh
don't
my
want to kill
gosh.
this passion of mine?
I really wanted to do it. I thought it would be so fun. And I, because of my sort of the trajectory of my life, I became friends with Andy Baragani before he worked at Bon Appetit. And then I think he had just started, and Molly Baz married a really good friend of mine. And because of that, and all my close friends are good cooks, and we would go on these big vacations and cook together. So beyond my family, I surrounded myself with really amazing people and who knew how to cook, and I learned a lot from them. When I moved to San Francisco when I was 23, I befriended one of the most famous drag queens in San Francisco, Juanita Moore, who's actually going to join me on my book tour, which I'm so excited about. And we're going to do a little in conversation. But the way that she cooked and entertained and shopped the farmers market had a huge impact on my life. And so I've always brought people in to further my journey, but um, I never thought I would make a full-time switch. It just, I was and for better or worse, I was making enough money in my old career that I was like, I just assumed it would be like a huge drop
Right.
in salary. And I don't have professional experience in the kitchen because I'm just a really seasoned home cook. And so no one's going to hire me in a restaurant,
Right.
nor did I want to work in a restaurant. So it was hard to imagine how the pivot would happen. And it happened because people needed someone like me to sort of help them get through a really tough time. And I
Mm-hmm.
was sort of uniquely positioned to do that because I sort of now lovingly say that I was kind of raised in lockdown. Like we didn't leave the house. We stocked the pantry. We cooked food. We made really comfortable homes. We didn't go out very much. So I know how to stay home and I know how to cook for myself and I know how to be comfortable in my own space. And I was able to use all of those skills to help people get through the pandemic.
Well,
So
let's
that's
talk about that, because I know 2019 was a rough year for you.
yeah.
The house, right?
The house, yep. I lost my Uncle Phil, who was like my best friend, and it was completely unexpected. And it just really made me realize like I was kind of unhappy. I could have kept going in my previous career and it would have been okay. And I loved the people I worked with, but I sort of was just like, I need to figure out something to do that's going to potentially bring me some joy. And so at my holiday cookie party, which was I think the seventh year that I was having it in 2019, I looked around the room, and this is the party where I invite all my friends, and they bring a cookie, and we share it on this big table, and there's a whole thing on my website if people are interested. But it was my sort of my favorite day of the year, and I was like, "What's happening today? How do I bring this into my life more regularly?" So I just sort of was like, "I'm going to take Instagram," which I was like, I'm a very socially out there person in terms of Instagram and just social media. I was like, I'm just going to try and like focus my Instagram on food, see what happens. Stop taking random pictures of flowers or things on the sidewalk or whatever, like selfies, and and start focusing on just creating an account that's really celebrating my passion of food.
Yeah.
And I was cooking other people's recipes. And then actually, early in January, Emily Schultz, who used to run the Bon Appetit Instagram account, who was a friend of mine, she was like, you should start taking your recipes and putting them in highlights, which is the worst way to share a recipe in the entire world because you have to like stick your finger down to like whatever, it's hell. But I started doing that, and then people started making my recipes.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit. I was a couple scrolls deep with food on my Instagram profile, and people thought I was a food account. And so it just took off. And because I started working from home, I went from cooking and sharing what I made on the weekends to cooking and sharing what I was making 7 days a week, because I was lucky enough to be able to do my old job from home entirely. So I took a lot of my creative energy, a lot of my anxiety, a lot of my being a single man living during the pandemic in New York City. Unfortunately, my roommates had to eat a lot of my food. Poor guys.
Right. Yeah.
But I sort of just built this brand. And I think something else that I think really brought me, and this is why I'm grateful that this happened to me at this point in my life, is I have like 18 years of being a marketing creative director so I was in the DMs, people open up to me wildly, and I was able to take everything they wanted from me, sharing with me, asking for me, and really turn it into sort of like what I was putting back into what I was sharing, right? In a very authentic way. And so it very quickly became a space that really caught on with people. And then within 2 weeks, I was like, I'm going to make a logo, and then I'm going to make merch, and then I'm going to make a website. And it just felt like I've met with people who've been doing this for 15 years, and they're like, in 6 months, you were like further along than I was. And that's only not because of my cooking skills, but because of my ability to design, market, brand myself, and understand how to effectively communicate teachable content to people. Just all came together.
Well,
So sorry, I'll let you talk. That's a mouthful.
Honey, this is about you. I think I had a question here. Like, what did you do different? Like, what do you think you did differently than those people who were doing this for like 10, 15 years? And you said authentic. And I think authenticity, people can see through bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I mean, I can see through bullshit for sure with other people. And I think that the authenticity, I had no idea that just my life was going to be so interesting to people. I joke with my friends who sat through 10 years of Instagram where I'd be like, okay, you can't eat yet. Wait, the food hit the table. Like, let me take a few pictures. Let me get the content. And then I would be like, I have to post it. I was much more chaotic before this happened to me. And my friends would be like, can we fucking eat yet? Like, you have 2,000 followers. And I was like, I don't care. They need to see this. Like, so my friends were like, you were in like Instagram influencer boot camp for a solid 10 years. And before this happened. So that also was, I guess we could call it strategic. I like to say it was strategic now that I can.
Right. I think, but I also think you were, Sarah Moulton says this. I've interviewed her a couple of times after 9/11.
Her voice, I can hear her voice. Right? Oh my gosh.
She's like, okay. I just want to hug her.
Yes.
I just want to
Yes.
hug her.
Yeah.
After 9/11, we had a conversation, basically there was nothing on TV. Like it was all
Yeah.
9/11 news coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Food Network started slowly but surely started putting chefs in cooking shows,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
everyone was drawn to it because it was
Oh my
so
gosh.
comforting.
Totally.
I think that's what you offered though.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like that level of comfort and that level of sort of like how to get through this was, I heard it from people all the time. They were just like telling me that I was getting them through the pandemic, which was
Mm-hmm.
really still blows my mind. So,
Yeah.
cool.
You and the what's the dude, the Tiger King, the tiger
Oh, the
guy.
Tiger King. Yeah, me and the Tiger King. We should do a collab. He's still around. Um, yeah, it was cool. I mean, and it's part of why I realized it was, people started sending me things and then a brand started reaching out to do stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky to have a full-time job,
Yeah.
have this second thing that's happening. That's a second full-time job and could eventually someday be my full-time job. It took about a full year before I quit my old job. And so then I started selling merch for charity. I just tried to like figure out how to turn it into a way to continue to like better what was happening in the world.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest honor ever to be able to have that ability to do it.
Well, the
So
merchandise you donate to Sage, which is an
yes.
organization that's they're historically known for supporting LGBTQ plus communities, right?
Yes, specifically elders.
Yeah.
So LGBT, they're the largest organization that supports LGBTQ elders, which during the pandemic, COVID was the second global pandemic for this community. They all survived AIDS, right? So if you're an LGBTQ elder right now, that means you survived AIDS,
For
which
sure.
is just, I mean, beyond
Mm-hmm.
traumatic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they were just watching their friends die daily.
Left and right.
Yes. And then now they're elderly and they are faced with this pandemic that calls for you to be isolated.
Yeah.
Now, this community is already 2 times less likely to have a partner and 4 times less likely to have a child or children. So think about who was supporting our elderly, right? Either your partner or your children were supporting the elderly during the pandemic. So when this hit, Sage went into overdrive and did all virtual programming. And one of the biggest things they did virtual doctor visits, virtual sort of like entertainment. But the biggest thing they did was food delivery services. So I was able to quickly raise money. And over the past 3 years, have raised almost $75,000 to donate to Sage through my merch sales and a couple other charity things that I've done to specifically target helping that community, which just is like mind blowing
It
to
is.
me, really, really, really cool and really special. And continue, hope to really be able to work with them for the rest of my life and help bring, visibility to the, because it's such a, it's a sad, it's not sad. It's a powerful community that often gets overlooked.
Right. Right.
But,
Well, I think elders in general,
oh
and
my
I've
gosh,
always said
absolutely.
this, it absolutely kills me to think about, we get really hot temperatures here in Southern Oregon, and these are shut-ins. They
Oh
can't
yeah,
leave, right? They're disabled or
absolutely.
whatever. And like
Absolutely.
food delivery or visits, like
Hmm.
all of this is so incredibly huge to this population.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have my grandfather who's 101,
Right.
and when my uncle passed away, he's living alone. And my dad visits him every day. So he's not truly alone. But, I think about him, I think about my uncle who passed away, and it just became like such a strong, clear thing that I needed to support. So,
Well, kudos.
anyways, wait, so you're in Southern Oregon, where?
Medford.
Okay.
Yeah.
I lived in Portland for like a quick 3 years between
Yeah.
San Francisco and New York.
I noticed that's one of your stops
Yes, I'm
in
coming to
Portland.
Portland.
That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited.
Portland is such a great food city. It's just amazing.
Well, all I did when I was there was eat
Hmm.
because I was not doing much else, I'll tell you that.
Good.
I I was
Good for you.
I was yeah, but yeah,
Let's
it was
let's talk about this cookbook. It's called Let's
yes,
Eat.
let's
Um
eat.
Super
The two
excited
favorite
for
words.
you. and I think this kind of rolls into everything you've been talking about with branding and marketing, the merch. And
Mhm.
so I feel like the natural next step was a cookbook.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought a cookbook would come out of me. I thought it might be printed at Kinko's and it might be like 10 recipes. But I
In
was
a
like, I
binder.
will, yeah, like the spiral bound, which
Yeah.
I would love because I do love a spiral bound cookbook.
Same.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's all part of sort of like just the fact that I, for years, was building other people's brands, was able to really quickly put together something that was really powerful. And I got a book agent in November of 2020 and started thinking seriously about what a book would look like. And in August of 2021, was approached by a publisher. My agent was approached by a publisher. I was trying to write a proposal, which is what you normally do. You normally write a proposal, shop it around. But I was approached by this publisher and just offer I couldn't refuse and just kind of went for it. So I got kind of a jump start and was able to, it takes 2 years from deal to
Yeah.
book for the book to come out, and was able to really surround myself with incredible people who supported me in making this book, because I certainly am not someone who could write a cookbook alone at this point in my life. But I was able to bring together, like I've always done my whole life as a creative director, bring together a team. I had, a really strong vision. I knew what all the recipes I wanted to be, and just made what I think is just such a cool
Mm.
book. And I'm so excited. Like, I can't wait for people to get their hands on it. Everyone who's gotten their hands on it so far has just been so happy, and that just is all I want. So
Perfect. Are you a recipe follower or do you cook from the hip?
um when I'm alone in my apartment, I never follow recipes.
Yeah.
I For my whole life have always just cooked from the hip, and so that was kind of what I do now, is try and figure out measurements for my cook from the hip,
So hard.
which is really hard to retroactively do. I will say, like, on big holidays, like I spend so much of late October and November like making Thanksgiving food of my own to like push out to people. So on Thanksgiving, on Christmas, I love, like, my favorite thing to do and my favorite way to relax is to pull a couple of recipes and just follow them. Because
Oh,
if I can follow someone else's recipe and not have to think about the development of it, it is
yeah.
now the most soothing thing for my brain. So oftentimes over like Christmas break, I will cook, a bunch of recipes I have bookmarked that I've been waiting to cook for,
Nice.
6 months. So it's just such a break for me to do that. And I also obviously learn so much. And also I love cooking from other cultures,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. And obviously I do that following a recipe. Unless it's American or Italian American or Portuguese, I don't know shit about how to
Dude,
make.
yes. It's so
Yeah.
difficult. Like the Asian
Yeah.
recipes. And
Oh my gosh. Or
I don't,
Indian food I love. And it's just like, I'm like, give me all your knowledge. I would
yeah.
love to, so it's great.
I'm obsessed with recipes like that and I follow
Yeah.
them so closely because
Oh
I
my
don't know
gosh.
shit
Yeah.
about Asian cooking.
Yeah. I'm not freestyling
No.
on the Mapo tofu recipe.
With fish sauce, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
just a half a
But
cup of fish sauce will work.
actually, my boyfriend Gus, he cooks a lot. And when he does, he follows good recipes, and he loves to make like larb lettuce wraps, and he loves to
Mm.
make Indian food. Like, he cooks and I always like kind of hang out and watch while he does, and it's just really fun.
Do you
So,
feel like I'm a big woo woo universe made this happen kind of person? Do you feel
oh my
like
gosh.
all
Yeah.
these things falling into place, right? The Grossy
Uh-huh.
Pelosi, the
Yeah.
cookbook, the
It's
merch,
like
the
everything. Yeah.
house, the
The house.
boyfriend, like all
Yeah.
this stuff is just like it was like boom, boom, falling into place for you.
Yeah, it really is overwhelming. Yeah, I feel really blessed, and I feel very um I don't want to say lucky, but I do feel lucky.
Yeah.
And it's not lucky like, where did this come from? I'm so lucky, like I won the lottery. I just feel like lucky to have like, I feel lucky in the sense that like I have a platform and I know what to do with it. I feel lucky in the sense that like I have a skill and people are interested in it. I feel
Hmm.
lucky that people say good morning back to me in the mirror post when I say good morning on my Instagram. Like, those are all really things that feel very like lucky and deserved at the same time.
Hmm.
So, and I think, it's not a day goes by that I don't realize like that this could all disappear. And, I'm just embracing and doing everything I possibly can with it in the moment. And people are just so happy for me. It's crazy. I bought this house and I was so, I'm just a regular girl who's worked hard her whole life. And so I was so nervous when I bought a home that people were going to be like, well, fuck this rich bitch. Bye. And I'm not rich. I've just saved a ton of money. I've worked really hard and I've built this brand and it's been really great for me. And I've never gotten more DMs in my life. I've never gotten more comments. Every single person was like, I am so proud of you. Like, you absolutely deserve this. And I just was like, I can't believe that you guys are so
I know.
amazing.
I know.
And maybe the people who were like, fuck this bitch didn't say it to me, which is great because I don't want you to. Like, say
No,
that to your text your friend.
go
I don't
away.
care.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. I mean, whatever. I'm sure people are talking shit about me left and right behind the scenes, and that's where the talking shit should happen. So,
Mhm.
um, but anyways, yeah, it's just really, really sweet and amazing. And every day I'm just sort of like, wow, 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 wow. So,
I think it's validation, right? It's validation that you are
mhm,
where you should be. But I also think again it goes back to authenticity and people are pulling for you and you're
yeah,
real. You're not faking it, right? You're not like
yeah,
everything you're doing
yeah.
is very authentic, it's very real, and so they're pulling for you.
Yeah, I hope they feel that way. It is. I mean, I'm very bad at faking things. Like, you can see it in my
Mhm.
face. Like, it's been a
Mhm.
fault of my whole life. So, um, and I'm so, I think I'm very clear about who should be with me and who shouldn't. I state my boundaries and I sort of say, like, if this isn't where you want to be, I don't need you to be here. And I think a lot of people who are putting content out are putting out content to gain followers and they just want to have a
Yeah.
million followers and they'll do whatever. And I just like, if my 140,000 people, if most of those people know why they're there, then that's a win for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, and
it's
I've noticed that too just with trying to grow my own social media pages. I'm just very deliberate in what I
mhm.
do, and it's like at
Yeah,
the end of the day, if if I have 3,000 followers and that's all that I'm
yeah,
ever going to have,
yeah.
I've earned every single one of those.
Absolutely. And that's all that people who want to, when you go to monetize your social, which is something that everyone should have the privilege of doing,
Yeah.
people care about your engagement. They care about the
Mhm.
quality of the followers, not the
Mhm.
quantity. So that said, I'm so happy for everyone who has all of their followers, however they get them.
Right.
Bless you. I'm not like, if
Yeah.
you have a million followers, good, go for it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so happy and I hope to have that too someday.
No,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, and I
you know,
think I try not to compare myself and
totally. It's
um
hard though.
it tell me about
Oh
it.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's super
No.
tough. And there's a gal who I
I
was
mean,
interviewing a while back cuz I struggle with that whole comparison and she just
mhm,
said, "Listen, if she can get that success, you can too."
totally. We
Right?
all can.
Yeah.
100%. I have people who have been following me for like whatever 3 years now, and some of them have been. There's this one girl, Alex Borland, who is just my number one. Like, she makes my recipes and posts them, and she makes these beautiful videos. Like, I'm like, you make the most beautiful videos. And she has now, I think she's at like almost 40,000 followers, and she's like getting brand deals. And I'm like, let's like go. Like, this is amazing. Like,
Go
I'm so happy
Alex.
for you.
Oh, I love
Like,
that.
it's just so nice to like, if we can all raise each other up, then
Yep.
that's like, that's
Yeah.
the goal. Like, I'm like, girl, get more followers than I have. Like, let's
Yeah.
do this. Like, like, let's support each other. So it's cool.
Yes, I absolutely believe that. I had a friend, I made grilled cheese and tomato soup on Instagram, and she said she was walking through the store watching my
Yeah. And then she
Instagram.
bought the
I
stuff. Yeah.
know. And I was like, oh my
The
gosh, you
best.
just made my whole year by saying
Oh
that.
yeah. It's the best. I mean, I post a recipe and people 2 seconds later are like, I made this too. It's like, oh my gosh. Like, the best thing that's happened to me in the past 3 years is at Christmas 2 years ago, I shared my peanut butter. I call them peanut butter blossoms, but like the peanut butter cookie with the Hershey Kiss in the
Hmm.
middle. They were my Aunt Marilyn's recipe, and she actually passed away during COVID, which was like so devastating. Um, but I shared her recipe, and someone messaged me and said, "Grossy, My grandmother used to make this recipe or my whole life. And my family has been so sad that we don't have her recipe. And I made your recipe for my family, and we all decided that your recipe is now grandma's recipe. And I was just like, good, like goodbye.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Goodbye.
Like that, like that is that, like I'm good. Like that's all I want.
Uh-huh.
Like don't even mention my name again.
Yeah.
Just take that recipe, call it grandma's recipe, and we
I
have
know.
accomplished
And
what we need to
there's
accomplish.
nothing like having someone tell you you were the inspiration that I made this mac and cheese for Thanksgiving. And you're just like,
Totally.
oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. The amount of kids I get, pictures of kids, parents who are like, I have the fussiest little kid and he will not eat anything, but he is covered head to toe in your vodka sauce. It's the best thing ever. The kids are obsessed with my vodka sauce. And parents cover broccoli and peas and all kinds of
Hell yeah.
vegetables in it. And they're just, it's this, I get kids. There was this kid, Gus does his voice really good, but he like said my name with like a little kid like lisp. It was like Grossy Pelosi. Like he just was like so cute. And parents
Oh,
like send me videos of their kids like saying my name. I'm like a family name. It's not a family name. I'm like a
I know
name in people's houses. Like they're like saying my
your
name a lot. It's
household
really
name, Grossy Pelosi.
household name. That was what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Not a
That
household name.
feels
It's wild.
good.
It's just so fun. And I think it's like, that's like it goes back to the sort of like we make your vodka sauce once a week, or like we make your lasagna every Christmas now. It's just like that's
Mm.
all I want. Like my family made the same, we made a lot of the same things over and over again. We weren't like doing three new recipes a week. Like we were
Oh no.
eating our classics. And that's the pace that I roll at, and that's what I want to do. Like I talk
Yep.
about the same recipes over and over again, and it's just fun to just sort of like really, I don't know. And I hope that a lot of the recipes in this book become classics for people. There's some really good ones. And also I've made sure to include, going back to that sort of marketing research lens that I have sort
Mm-hmm.
of been using my whole career. The book is written to answer the questions I've been receiving on repeat for the past 3 years.
Nice.
And that was really incredible when I went to sort of build out what the book should be. I was like, I have to answer
Mm-hmm.
all of these FAQs in this book because I want this book to be on your counter, and I want the pages to be folded over. I want you to tear out a page and hang it on your refrigerator, like whatever you need to do. There's like 13 or 14 Grossy guides. You've seen the book, right? You got the
Yeah.
galley?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So all those guides, every chapter starts with a guide,
Yep.
and it kind of sets you up to cook the whole chapter, or a specific sort of like type of food in a way that I think is really helpful. So I'm hoping those become sort of like really frequently used, like how to roast every vegetable, or how
Right.
to cook every meat and fish, or how to cook eggs 4 ways. Like those are just sort of like the things that people ask me constantly.
Yeah, well,
So,
I love that. And it's so funny because I do try and think of new things that I want to cook, but I always go back to kind of the things that I just love, the classics.
mhm.
I mentioned we were on vacation and my family, the first night we made fried chicken, butter
Yeah,
beans and rice. We had
great.
corn, cream corn, mac and cheese, and
Yeah.
that meal blew away everything else.
Yeah,
Just
of course. Wait, can we talk about butter beans and rice? Butter beans are the big beans, right?
So my southern accent's gonna come out. Butter beans
Ooh.
are my uncle grows butter beans, and so they're just like they're about like that. They're small. They're
Mm-hmm.
similar
So,
to like a lima bean, but butter beans have
okay.
way more flavor.
Yeah, because I feel like I use butter beans. They can them, right?
Yeah, I've seen butter beans canned.
Yeah, because I used to make like a butter bean and cabbage thing.
Mm-hmm.
Make that again. But oh my God, beans and rice in any
Oh,
form.
dude, yes, yes. But
I'm not
butter
like
beans, and they cook them with a ham hock, usually,
green.
just
Yes.
white rice, fried
I
chicken,
don't
and
like
okra. We had
rice.
okra too.
Oh my gosh, where did you go on vacation?
We went to North Carolina, Lake Wiley. We usually go to Lake
Oh,
Lure, but
okay.
just yeah, they're all from South Carolina. My grandma was a big influence in all of us cooking. She was a farmer and a cook, and
Nice.
so yeah.
Amazing. How did you end up in Oregon?
I moved to Las Vegas when I was 16. Everybody every time I tell someone this, they're like, "Why'd you go to Vegas?" And I'm like, "I wasn't like a stripper in Las Vegas. My parents moved to Vegas and I lived with them, so I went too. And then I went to school
Yeah.
in Reno and then moved up to Medford."
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, but Southern cooking, that's really what I crave now because it's the recipes, it's the food of us. It tells the story of us, of our family. And so that's really what I crave. So when we get together and we make those super simple dishes, super simple,
Yeah, yeah,
that's the best.
yeah.
That's the best.
That's, I divided my book. There's a section that's like, kind of like what to cook and when you want to cook it. And there's a few like all day Sunday simmering on the stove
Which I
recipes,
love. Which I
which I
love.
love. And I think you need to have those. And there's some sort of like overnighters, but the majority of the recipes are pretty quick and easy,
Yeah.
which is how I cook. It's like I think there's like what to cook on a Wednesday night or what to make all day Sunday or like I'm lazy. I don't feel like cooking. Like here's the recipes for you. So I want to point people in the right direction. You
So
know.
what's in the cookbook? Like what are some of the highlights?
Okay, so there's 10 chapters.
Okay.
I'll go through it quick. The egg chapter for me is a lot of how to entertain people for breakfast. How do you make eggs for a crowd, which I think is really challenging for people.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of sort of like, I'm having people over for brunch. How can I um, use some eggs. And eggs used to be affordable, so I thought it would be a really great accessibility play.
Whoops.
but because if you can get a dozen eggs, you can feed a lot of people.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there is a appetizer section, and about 5 of the recipes in that chapter use the same batter for frying,
Oh,
which is
perfect.
great. I love the idea of like learning one
Mm-hmm.
hero recipe and being able to make multiple things out of it. Um, then there's a vegetable chapter, which is so funny because I joke that there's like one salad in the book, but you can make 4 different salads from that salad.
Nice.
There's a more than that, but there's a vegetable chapter, and then there's 2 chapters in the book that are based on hero recipes. My pizza dough, homemade pizza dough,
Mm-hmm.
and homemade marinara sauce. And I have a guide to both of those. So it tells you like how to work with yeast, like how are you storing it? Can you freeze pizza dough? Like what are the best practices for making pizza dough at home? And I also say, you know what? All these things work with pizza dough from the pizza shop. So you can go ahead and just buy pizza dough. And then you go in and you could make 8 recipes from that dough. And they're all different things. There's calzones, there's pizza, there's cinnamon rolls, there's I don't know, there's all kinds of focaccia. Because I want like mom, dad, anyone, babysitter to have their go-to pizza recipe and then they can make all these things. So you're not learning a million new recipes, right? And then same thing with marinara. Here's my marinara sauce. Here's how to pick your tomatoes, what kind of garlic. Here's my garlic bread recipe. You could freeze it, you could put it in the fridge. Then there's all these recipes that you can make with it, right? Here's the 6
Love
recipes,
it.
7, I think. And then we have pasta, which is the biggest chapter in the book. There's like 15 recipes, and there's meat and fish, and then there's dessert. So it's pretty straightforward. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
classics, a lot of my family recipes. And then in the middle, there's a 1 chapter recipe, which is the big Italian sandwich, which is my favorite sandwich. I say that it serves 1 to 6 people, depending on who you are. And it also has a little secret section that tells you a bunch of sandwiches you could make from leftovers of all their recipes in the book. Because I believe that all leftovers are going to become a sandwich.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Um, I do want to wrap up a little bit. I
yeah,
I
yeah, for
have
sure.
like a bazillion questions, so
Of
I
course.
just want you to
We
come
can,
back.
yeah, well, we can schedule a part 2.
Just a part two. I love that.
Yeah,
Before I
yeah.
get to the final 3 though, what's in your meatball? The classic meatball.
Okay, so I do breadcrumbs, eggs, parmesan, fresh mint, fresh basil. I do beef and pork, and then I do raisins, which is very controversial, but I believe that the raisin, which is by the way, a traditional thing, it's Sicilian. They do raisins and pine nuts. I
Mm-hmm.
don't love pine nuts in my meatball, but you could also add them. Or you could take the raisins out and they're still really good meatballs. But I love that little juicy burst of sweetness in the savory meatball.
In the ball.
And when they soak in the sauce, because you obviously cook them in the sauce,
Yeah.
it makes everything sweeter. It's so good.
Raisins. Interesting. And mint.
Raisins and mint. Mint is a big herb for me. You'll find it in my
Yeah.
lasagna.
Yeah.
Um, it's really good savory. It's taken a lot of convincing people. to use mint.
Yeah.
They're like, is it going to taste like toothpaste? I'm like, that is not mint. There
No.
is not fresh mint in your toothpaste.
Is this Bempy's recipe?
You know, the meatball recipe is not Bimpy's recipe. It's inspired. Bimpy always put raisins in his meatballs, but over the years, I've sort of taken the 10 meatball recipes I've grown up with and turned them into like my
Nice.
version of the meatball.
Yeah.
And the same thing with marinara and everything else. So, yeah.
I love Bempy, by the way. I just want to
I do
smooch
too.
him. I just want to hug him and
Did
smooch
you
him.
see the dedication page? I mean, like,
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
He's such an angel.
He
He's
is.
so cute. He's so cute.
All right, let's get to the final three.
Yeah.
Best advice you've ever been given.
Oh my gosh, the best advice I've ever been given. I don't know directly what the best advice I've ever been given is. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so someone told me a long time ago to not worry about your weaknesses, but just focus on your strengths.
Ooh.
Because if you continue to focus on what you're really good at, your weaknesses will fall to the wayside. Not everyone has to be good at everything, but become really good at a few things, and then you'll really have some power.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's real good advice. Who gave that to you?
I think someone in college, an art school teacher in
Okay.
college.
It's good.
You know, I'm not like I can't like draw your portrait. You know what I mean? But my teacher was like, "So what if you can't draw your portrait?"
Right.
He was like, "Someday you're going to be designing
Yeah.
Williams Sonoma stores," and
But
he
you're good
saw
at this
that in
and this
me,
and this. Yeah.
and that he literally said that, and I ended up designing retail stores for years. You know, so
Amazing.
yeah.
What's your happy place?
I think it's like, you know, I think for me right now, it's in either one of my kitchens, and it's currently with my boyfriend, just cooking and hanging out and with our families. I mean, boring, but kind of nice to know that that's what makes me happy.
Nope, not
Yeah.
at all. Not boring. And he's a cutie, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Angel for heaven.
Adorable. In all things.
I threw him out of the apartment for this interview, by the way.
Aw, dang it. Okay. Well, tell him I said hi. In all things food and drink, what do you crave?
I think I crave salty, savory for everything. I like that. I like sweet. I'm not like a big, huge dessert person. I do enjoy it, but 9 times out of 10, I want like cheese on top of cheese with some salt and some meat and some bread.
But like, if you were like kind of on your deathbed, is it the Italian sandwich?
It would definitely, I think, no, it would have to be pasta. I need like a rigatoni. Like when you get the two sides of the rigatoni that come together and you bite it and you break through both of those chubby ass chunks of the rigatoni and there's like a really good sauce. To me, that like mouthfeel on your tooth, like rest in peace. That's it. I'm good.
Chubby ass rigatoni.
Or pakari. Pakari is, you know what pakari is?
Yeah.
It's like huge. Like pakari is it. Like, oh my gosh.
I love it. Well, Grossy Pelosi, Dan Pelosi, you've been so much fun. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Just really quickly, you have a website. It has recipes, guides, videos. Your cookbook, Let's Eat, is coming out. Follow on Instagram because you post so much fun stuff. And I just think you are beautiful inside and out. And I just feel like if I lived in Brooklyn, we would be best friends forever.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And hopefully if you come to Portland for my book tour, you got to let me know because we are going to make out.
I'm thinking about it. Hot and heavy sesh.
Hot and heavy. We'll have to like find a private room. With pottery. Meet you in some pottery.
That's just pornographic and dirty.
It is. It is.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been a blast.
Thank you. Such a treat.
You've been listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma with me, Trish Close. You can watch this podcast and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Just search Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma. You can also listen and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.